Coming of age and slice of life narratives work best with a dash of science fiction. Some of the greatest visual novels have included a blend of these genres, and I don't see myself tiring of them anytime soon. Until Then by developer Polychroma Games presents players with characters on the verge of adulthood, still navigating school and family life while trying to understand what comes next for them. However, the real spark of this story revolves around the strange supernatural happenings around town following a devastating natural disaster. Until Then introduces us to Mark, a high schooler who lives alone in typical protagonist fashion as his parents work abroad. However, this isn't just a trope to be forgotten. The theme of Mark not totally understanding how to have a family is brought up numerous times. He doesn't play into jealousy, but he does exude a can't be bothered attitude, reflected in his grades and social standing. To be honest, I didn't really like Mark when I first met him. His friends were kinda unlikable at first too. Their interactions play out like a late 90s sitcom with witty dialogue and clever pacing to add awkwardness to the scenes. This storytelling method is easy to consume, but not easy to relate to. However, the narrative features these text message conversations between characters that feature modern conversation flows, which makes up for the New Girl-esque character interactions. However, like any newfound friendship, the more you hang out with these characters, the more they grow on you. I found myself invested in their dynamics, but also never felt like a bystander. The writing makes you feel like you're a part of the group and that you've known these characters your entire life, which flows with the narrative themes. Even though the flow of dialogue might not be relatable, the 8-hour game setting and plot lines are exceptionally immersive. The plot follows Mark, who suffers from extreme deja vu and finds out a friend at school named Luis is also suffering from this spell. This is the easiest plot to criticize because as the story follows Mark's attempts to be a good friend and connect with the transfer student named Nicole, he leaves all the investigating into the supernatural themes to Luis. Several plot points are introduced, but not really followed, only to be brought up later with the character filling in Mark on what he missed out on, making some scenes feel a little exhausting due to the constant exposition. Although the player assumes the role of Mark, I feel like the writers find themselves more in Kathy. The relationship between these two characters is just a little too specific and nuanced that scenes felt like they were pulled straight out of a diary. There were moments where I felt like I was being nosy as Mark texted his friends late at night or Kathy struggled with some family issues. This personal storytelling can make or break some narratives, but in this case, the team found a balance between all the characters to make them likable and even interesting. I began to think about what various supporting characters were doing at any given time, only to have the chance to ask them later over texts. I felt like the supernatural elements could have been explored a little more. In fact, I don't really remember it even being mentioned in Chapter 3. Sure, it rounds out in the final chapter, but I would have liked Mark to be more present in understanding the phenomenon rather than relying on Luis for most of the story. As you could have likely guessed, this is an emotional tale, and the final chapter is the most gripping part. So many plot threads come to an end, offering a decent wrap-up to the core story, but it doesn't actually explore the relationships to their fullest potential. While the players can make choices during dialogue that change some character reactions, this is pretty much a linear story. Nothing will stop you from progressing, even the various minigames, but I didn't mind due to the highly stylized pixelated animated scenes and environments. Every conversation seems to have unique transitions that show the scene from various angles, limiting any exhaustion in still scenes. Further, when you control Mark, you can explore scenes and make choices that give different conversational outcomes. It provides a very comfortable gameplay experience that encourages exploration while getting through the scenes. Sadly, I wouldn't say I liked the in-game UI. There is this lovely phone face, but instead of using that as the base, the start menu is just basic text. I would have liked to see Mark pick up his phone to access text logs, saves, settings, and even character profiles that follow the supporting cast. Regardless, that would just be the icing on the cake for this emotionally charged and entertaining story, which I recommend as your next weekend game. Until Then balances relatable coming-of-age themes with supernatural elements that don't overshadow its unique characterizations. This is ultimately a story of loss, whether that be outgrowing a group of friends or losing a close one. But it doesn't stop there. We get to see these characters and truly understand who they are. It's a fantastic player experience to feel so connected to a cast that you just met. You want to see where their story leads, and while it doesn't lean as heavily into supernatural elements as I would have hoped, there's a level of quality here that can't be overlooked. Noisy Pixel is giving Until Then an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.